Welcome to the Propaganda Report. This is Monica Perez, soon to be joined by my partner, Brad Binkley. And of course, as always, we are having a weekend update with Garland Favorito about his efforts to foster election integrity, both with a view towards past elections and future elections. And it sounds like his efforts are expanding despite a few setbacks in the recent past. So we're going to get a full update. And then, as usual, at the end of maybe half hour, 45 minutes, we're going to go to questions in the chat. So feel free to communicate to us that way. And be sure to be logged into YouTube or whatever you're using so that we can see those chats. And that's it. So without further ado, let's dish. Let's dish there, Garland. Let's bring in Binkley. Binkley was wrapping up on another podcast that we were having, and now he's in with us. So that's it. I see there's a couple of you had a lot of developments lately, Garland. Are you ready to give us an update?
Yeah.
I saw a video from Nydia. I saw an email from you. Tell us what's going on.
You're a busy podcaster. Today was from one to another.
Today this is our third podcast today, but also I was saying that we had been live streaming this on Facebook, but last time we got kicked off within minutes of beginning the stream, and Binkley said that he thinks, and I think he's right, it's part of that no election talk on Facebook.
Yeah, it definitely was. And Facebook isn't doing what they want them to do. It absolutely is.
And it's funny because Facebook, it's pretty clear it has its origins somewhere in the military, and the First Amendment is designed just for this purpose, and they've closed down the world so that our only real public square is digital, and it's gone. Yeah, it's gone.
CIA.
Yes, exactly. Yes, for sure. So anyway, their evil plots are progressing, but we are going to try to stay one step ahead of them. So so what's been going on since last time we talked?
Well, one thing is we're going to be live streaming on Rumble from now on, so there won't be.
Yes, I'm seeing that the VoterGA. I wonder if we're our Rumble thing just got kicked off too, but it's not kicked off, but our Rumble VoterGA thing did not take this time around. We might have to enter the credentials, but for now we'll have to upload it after the fact.
Should we add it to Twitter?
What?
Should we stream to Twitter?
It is streaming to Twitter.
Oh, is it? Okay, cool.
So okay. So what's happened since last time?
Well, a couple things, Monica. Probably the big item is that the governor, Brian Kemp, has produced a report of 40 discrepancies in the audit, and he sent a letter to the state election board to look into this matter. And he got all the information from us in our July 13th press conference, and we had some folks working on that. Joe Rossi and Jack James did a great job, and they have been working for probably 2 months to convince the governor's office that there were issues with the audit. And the governor has now come around and said, yes, you are in fact right. And they confirmed all 36 points in his letter were things that, almost every one came from our July 13th press conference and our July 13th release, where we identified massive errors and some fraud in the audit, specifically the falsified tally sheets.
I saw that, and I wondered. It was strange timing to me that happened only after your case was whether permanently or temporarily. I mean, it was the judge dismissed the case, and only then did Kemp come out. I thought that timing was weird.
Yeah. Well, I think the timing has to do with, I think that, Joe and Jack kind of took that project on after they saw our July 13th data.
Okay.
And I think they went through, I don't think there's a
understand.
Nefarious connection there, but they went through a couple months of trying to convince them that, in fact, this is real, and the governor's office verified all the claims that Joe made. Joe took our data and made his claims, and which are basically the same thing. And the governor's office verified every claim very carefully, and then they came out with their own 36-point list of issues, discrepancies, which have to do with like duplicate reporting, which we've reported, and then they also mentioned the falsified tally sheets. Although they didn't claim that they were falsified, they just simply said there are discrepancies. It's like if the actual images, they verified that the actual images, for example, in one batch was 60-40 Biden to Trump, which is what you would expect, and then they verified that the audit tally sheet for that batch said it was 100-0.
How is that possible? Biden. How can you verify that? I mean, that's just a lie, right? I mean, that had to have been an intentional lie. What other explanation could there be?
It's a falsified tally sheet. And so they confirmed that, in fact, that the results that we reported are correct. There was a tally sheet of 100-0, and the actual images for that tally sheet are 60-40 for that batch for Biden.
And it's so rookie to use round numbers.
Yes. Yes, but I'm glad they did. So they got caught now. But unfortunately, nobody has been investigated and held accountable for that. So that's where we stand. If I was Fulton County and I was honest and legitimate, I would be all over that and trying to find out who did that, which was probably 2 more Happy Face employees. And then I would take the appropriate action. The Fulton County has done nothing. We have sent this to the election board. We actually presented it at the election board. Several of our members have presented it at the election board, and the board has heard it and done nothing. So there's a massive cover-up by not just the election board, but at least certain members of it, and then the commission, certain members of the commission who happen to have the majority.
So when this says there are 36 instances of duplicate or misidentified batch reporting, then it goes on to say most of the duplicate examples are part of 36 batches and 4,255 total extra votes added to the November audit results. What does that mean exactly? What are batches like piles that they scan? Explain that.
They look at 100 ballots at a time. And 100 ballots at a time, and then they will count up the number of ballots in that batch. It's not always 100, but usually. And then they record the numbers on a tally sheet, one of those yellow tally sheets, and they'll record, okay, Biden got 60, Trump got 40, or whatever, Jorgensen got 3, whatever the numbers are, and then they will upload that data. So what they reported as 100-0 doesn't match the actual images for that batch. So basically, the only explanation, the governor didn't go so far as to explain why that exists, that anomaly exists. But obviously, the only possible anomaly is that it's a falsified tally sheet. And
how does this work with Ravensburger, who clearly talks out of both sides of his mouth? He's been fighting you every step of the way. And then after you were in the home stretch, he came out and said there's clearly tons of funny business in Fulton County. I will not stand for this. That was Ravensburger not that long ago. And and Kemp had all that kind of standing by the sidelines thing. Do you have any gut or anything that you're willing to kind of color in some of those details, or this is just that it's weird and we just have to see where it goes from here?
Well, that's exactly what happened. What you said is exactly what happened. At the same time, Ravensburger was fighting us in court. He was saying that, we should be able to look at the ballots. Literally the same day that when the judge made the order to unseal, Ravensburger's office said, oh, that was a good thing. And at the same time, that very same day, his assistant attorney general was arguing against us in court on his behalf. So this has been an exceptionally good thing because, as you said, the governor has been very silent, and Raffensperger is talking out of both sides of his mouth. It split the governor and the Secretary of State. So that is a really good thing. Now we have this split finally, because the governor has been quiet and letting Raffensperger continue on. And finally, it's getting to the point where even the governor can't remain silent, if he wants to get reelected next year. So it's really a good thing, and it justifies the audit. We have to have an audit now, because now we know that this audit could not possibly have been used to verify the results of the original, the election.
So we're not even really talking about the original election yet. We're just saying there hasn't even really been an audit. So when you see in the mainstream media or Raffensperger or whatever say, we've had a recount, we've had an audit, shut up already. You're saying that we did not have an audit. This is not properly audited. There's more problems with the audit than we ever, we haven't even gotten to looking at the election yet. The audit is invalid.
Well, right. So, I mean, technically they went through the motions of conducting what they call an audit. It only it audited the count. It didn't audit, the counterfeit ballots, because they didn't have any procedure to deal with that. But even from the count perspective,
got it.
Right. Even from that perspective, the counts, we found a 60% error rate in the batches. So what that meant was, if the audit, Raffensperger's audit, reported X number of votes for Biden and X number of votes for Trump per batch, then the actual images don't match what the Fulton County reported. Right. There's 60% of them are wrong to some degree.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's a 6-0.
Okay. So, but Kemp is running for re-election and Raffensperger's is not, right? Or we don't know.
Raffensperger is running for re-election officially at the moment. I don't know how long he's going to stay in the race, given that, it's just been so, he's probably the most unpopular guy in Georgia right now.
Right. So John, when he says the commercials, I'm not there. I can't see them. Are those election type? What? I mean, we're a year before the election.
So there's an interesting point there that John makes. So there's a new commercial out which touts Raffensperger's secure elections and accomplishments, and it was funded by HAVA, Help America Vote Act. So basically, he is using HAVA money to fund the campaign, or at least he's gotten HAVA to go along with it.
What is HAVA?
Help America Vote Act. So Help America Vote Act is your taxpayer dollars being used to promote the guy who is against election transparency in the state of Georgia, who has been covering up big time. And now your tax dollars are used to fund his commercial. It's just,
yeah. That's why I think he's going to run again. He's not popular in Georgia, but he's popular in the mainstream media, and he's popular with some of these organizations that are going to.
And he controls the vote. It's not who votes; it's who counts the votes.
Yeah.
Raffy the Wolf, isn't that what you call him now, Garland? Raffy the Wolf.
Yeah, so they have new billboards out at GAAuditNow.com. There's a whole campaign to put billboards out. Several have already gone up, and they're digital billboards, so they changed the message. And they're really, really cute. You can see a lot of them at GAAuditNow.com, and they're really funny. And then I've also got a fax video out there where Raffensperger says we've had the safest, most secure, and honest elections in Georgia history. And I said, no, it's the least safe, least secure, and least honest election after we play the billboards.
And what about those quotes juxtaposed with that recent quote, which I had to read it so many times to get it through my head, where he said, do you remember this one? I'm sick and tired of all the funny business coming out of Fulton.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that was recent.
Yeah, but he fired the people, so he took care of the problem, is how he frames it.
Okay. Well, it's just kind of.
Well, they fired. Yeah, Fulton fired the whistleblowers. Is what actually happened.
No whistleblower, no problem.
Yeah, exactly. That's the best way to get rid of the problem, is just to fire the whistleblower. So.
That's his problem. He got rid of his problem, but not our problem. So, okay. Now let me get my mind around this. So that's one thing. That's Kemp. What is he asking for? What is Kemp?
Oh,
he's just saying stuff.
Yeah, he wrote No, he wrote a letter to the state election board, which was formerly chaired by Brad Ravensburger, and asked them to look into the matter. Now, this is way above the state election board's head. They don't normally do this. They just do onesie twosie. Hey, did this voter vote in the right location? That's basically what they do. They don't do legitimate election integrity work.
What will they have to do then?
Well, I don't know. It's a really good question. This is it's uncharted waters for them. So it's very interesting to see what they can and will do.
Were these the people named in your suit? No, that was Fulton.
Right. Not yet.
Yeah. Oh, fun. So, okay. So now, so that's at the state level or just?
Well, yeah. So he was looking at Fulton County mail-in ballots only, and he found all these discrepancies, and he has to.
Oh, just like you. This is just what pertaining to what your lawsuit was about.
Right. The reason all this exists is because we got the ballot images made public and with Senate Bill 202. And then we still had to get a court order to get Fulton to release them. But they did. And then we got to look at them. And then we found this was the first set of anomalies that we found. And so it's based on the work that we did back in July after the images were made public on March 25th.
Boy.
So it took us May and June to actually look at them. And then July, we had the press conference.
And people complain about mail-in ballots up and down, but I've always been with you. I mean, they are not inherently bad. As a matter of fact, when you have a bad voting machine, it may be your best recourse as far as having physical paper trail that's been physically marked by a person that you can actually tell. There's you could never tell a toner problem with, maybe you could with a ballot image. Could you or could you not? You can't tell. Can you tell paper stock with a high enough resolution image?
Yeah, I believe that they can. If you get these 600 DPIs, there's a lot of information that they can get. Toner and paper stock to some degree. And there's several different things they can do.
Because the grayscale.
Yeah. Plus, if we can physically touch them, then, or at least then we can see a lot of that, measure them, and there's certain techniques that we can use photograph.
The mail-in ballots in Fulton were only a fraction of the total ballots, though. Do you remember what % were mailed in Fulton? Roughly?
There's 147,000 mail-in ballots out of 523,000 cast.
Okay, so 25%. 25% of the ballots are physical.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe a little bit more.
That's not nothing, but still, that alone is enough to overturn some of these results. And you could have a problem 4 times the size. You won't even know about it. And still, they won't even let you look at that one sliver, which reminds me to ask you, what's your the status of your appeal against having been overthrown based on standing?
Yeah, so the appeal is submitted. I forgot to put a notice out on that, but we submitted the appeal. It was approved. We thought they were going to try to sit on it and then reject it, but they didn't. They approved it, and we're going forward. We're waiting for that case to be docketed, and then we'll have a brief that will explain the flaws in the judge's ruling.
So you didn't have to put the grounds. Well, what were your grounds of appeal?
Well, there are going to be multiple grounds. We haven't stated them yet.
Okay, you didn't have to state them in order to get your appeal docketed?
No, it's just a notice. Well, it's just a notice, and then it'll be docketed. Then we'll have the brief.
When is that due?
Well, the docket, it could be months before they docket the case.
It's just so fucked up.
Which is why we need the audit. But I can tell you the basic grounds. So and probably the most fundamental thing is that what the judge did was violate 100 years of U.S. Supreme Court precedents. So obviously, if no one had standing to check on counterfeit ballots and somebody stuffed the ballot box, then basically, if what he had ruled was actually true, then it would be open season for every criminal in the state of Georgia and even nationally to start stuffing ballot boxes and cheating. So it's like, so elections would not mean anything anymore if that was true. But unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, it is true that it did violate the U.S. Supreme Court precedent. So 100 years ago, back in 1915, U.S. v. Mosley said that your right to have your vote count is equally as open to protection as your right to put a ballot in the ballot box. It's pretty obvious. It's just common sense. But you think about all this emphasis on, who can vote and is there voter suppression, all this other stuff. Well, the same amount of emphasis the U.S. Supreme Court says can be put on the right to have your vote counted. And then 50 years later, in 1964, Reynolds v. Sims came along and they said that the right to have your vote count cannot be diluted by ballot box stuffing. So that's exactly what our case is.
Right.
And it doesn't say that, you have to have a particularized injury or a certain class or a certain type of standing or anything else. That's just the right to vote. That means one voter, one vote. It cannot be diluted by ballot box stuffing. And the law has been clear or the case law has been clear for 50, 100 years.
Am I right or wrong to think that this is some of those precedents were used or established in gerrymandering, in the battle against gerrymandering, which I believe that part of why a person would have standing is belonging to a group that is whose votes are diluted or discounted based on intentional, action to marginalize that group. And historically, that has been used in cases of gerrymandering voting districts to exclude one race or another, or even political parties, even to just, so that I would say I understand the race thing being totally fundamental, but to do it on the basis to say that it's kind of like, to disallow it based on party affiliation, being prejudiced against party affiliation, seems to be even less compelling. The race thing is most compelling, but this would be much less compelling, I think, than your position, which is you're not even partisan. You voted for somebody who wasn't even part of those parties, and still your vote was literally diluted out of existence. They don't even count it. They didn't even count your vote. And so many people voted for Joe Jorgensen and stuff where in that audit it did not even count as a vote. But I thought the tell in the two big tells in the judge's decision that dismissed your case based on standing was just how very long it took for him to address that. He could have addressed that out of hand and never heard your case to start out with. And not to mention it wasn't even in Fulton County. He really could have gotten away with that right up front, but he didn't, which wasted a lot of time, effort, and money, which I consider reprehensible. But the other thing was that the precedents he referred to were recent, were like 2021 pertaining to this election cycle. Now that is weird to me because those precedents that were relevant to your case were well established long before recent, and it's quite possible that there was funny business in recent cases. It didn't stand the test of time, didn't stand the test of scrutiny, and to have to dip into something recent, it makes it feel more like it's political. It's a reflection of the political atmosphere that got him to make his position right in the then and there.
Well, that's exactly right. So what happened was he used the 11th Circuit ruling against Lynn Wood. He couldn't find anything else, so he used that. And Lynn Wood said that he had argued the case on behalf of himself. Any voter could have done it, and he didn't argue on behalf of a class of voters. Our argument was that we have a class of voters whose vote were diluted by ballot stuffing, and there's a class of voters whose votes were strengthened by ballot stuffing once you find out what the ballot stuffing is. So it
wasn't even a relevant case.
Correct. It was not relevant to our claim, and that's why it's so invalid, and that's why it conflicts with all the U.S. Supreme Court standards, and that's why he just came up with that as a last-minute thing. He didn't have anything else he wanted to get rid of the case. So basically, he just made it up.
Yeah, well, I'm so cynical about this kind of stuff that I wouldn't be surprised if that precedent were established intentionally to have broad application, even if it's spurious, they could still just, kick the can. It kicks your can, right? So even if, it may be capricious or whatever, but they're not held to that standard. And they get to just, it takes a lot to like read that stuff and think about it and understand which is a more relevant precedent, which is on point and which isn't. So, okay. So you've got your appeal established coming.
Yeah. I was going to say, since you want to go down the rabbit hole a little bit, I'll just go a little bit further. So the person who wrote that, the 11th Circuit opinion, everything, it wasn't unanimous as far as I know, was Bill Pryor. William Pryor certified probably the most corrupt election in Alabama history.
The Roy Moore?
It was a no, it was before that. It was a gubernatorial. It was a gubernatorial race in which they literally found 6,000 votes and switched them in East Alabama. And Moore certified that would not allow that to be investigated.
Not Moore.
I'm sorry, Pryor.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, William Pryor. Yeah, I'm sorry. You confused me with Roy Moore.
Sorry.
But yeah, so I don't know. But just to go down there a little bit, that's
so he's a guy who couldn't be trusted anyway. And right. So who knows? I always do think about the backstory of judges, and judges get put on or taken off of cases. It's not just, it's not just David Stern picking for the draft. It's like you don't know what's really going on if there's a cold ballot in there or something. But so I just think, yes, it's true that I think the judges can be selected. I always thought that with like the Bill Cosby case and stuff, they know who they're putting where. And sometimes it's just short term. It's just to make a point. It's just to allow something like this to happen. Even if it gets overturned later, it serves the purpose they want. So I don't always think it's super trustworthy.
Just to go down, I'll keep going down the rabbit hole with you. So just to give you an example, they've had 3 really fairly corrupt election rulings in Cobb County, and they always drag out the same retired judge who makes these rulings in Cobb County. So that's a good example of what you are talking about.
Yeah, and who's I mean, you'd have to nerd out on this stuff to really figure out what's going on, and that's the tragedy of it. That's the problem with the mainstream media, is that they contribute to glossing over these really important details, these details that can literally change the interpretation from one thing to the opposite. And historically, what is in the American mind is that the press is there to do that legwork for you, so you don't have to. And now we see very clearly that the press is there to gloss over that stuff. And it's up to us. I mean, even with health issues and stuff, but it's up to us to dig through the cover up that the
cover up. I was going to say cover up, not just gloss over. They actively cover it up.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yes, and it's true for all of these really hot button issues that seem to be so critical right now for a transition of society. I mean, that is what it seems like we're undergoing, and the election integrity, a great litmus test for what is the critical path item for this change of the establishment of the new world order is what's banned from Facebook, like our conversations. Like, we're cut off in the last Facebook conversation. Last time we did this, we tried to stream to Facebook, and it was the last time. They cut it off within a couple of minutes, and now I can't even get it to work. But
they also cut off our last press conference, just to switch gears for a minute.
Oh, they did? When was that? That was just this week, right?
It was a week after last, and we announced that there were about 70 counties who have unable to produce their original ballot images. And that conference was blocked by both YouTube and Facebook, as far as we
YouTube.
know. Yeah.
I mean, not that YouTube isn't completely guilty of all the censorship, but this is streamed on YouTube right now, live. Live is usually has been getting through.
Yeah, well, I shouldn't say anything.
We might be short for this this world.
Well, I guess we'll be gone. Yeah. So, well, and as far as we know, it wasn't a technical error. Arian, everything was set up to go, and it started off good, and then bingo was gone in a matter of minutes. But that was when we and these, it wasn't we were just making this stuff up. We actually had the emissions from 56 counties that they don't have the images, and the other 18 said that they just refused to comply,
which is in violation of a law.
Open records request, yes. One violated the open records request, and the other counties violated the federal and state statutes for record retention.
And there's no clear penalty for this, right? There's no accountability for violating the public trust.
Well,
it's like $1,000 fine
for ORR. Yeah,
so all you have to do is $1,000.
Yeah, get a GoFundMe started, and they'll be good.
Oh yeah, that's true. I'm sure a white knight will parachute in from the
yeah. They'll say we are protecting the election from these Nazis. GoFundMe, and they'll get some money to pay for their fine.
Well, they won't need that. They'll just use your taxpayer money.
That's true.
It's a county.
Yeah,
they don't have to fund it.
Speaking of Facebook, Zuckerberg was behind these strategically placed ballot drop boxes, right?
Yeah, he funded a lot of that, and I forget the name of his organization at the moment. But yes,
Meta.
And there was
Meta.
Meta.
Well, now.
There were so many things wrong with that. It's unreal.
So, how is your changing gears a little bit? How's the Dominion suit going, which is more forward-looking? You want to get rid of the Dominion voting machines, right?
Right. So we filed that lawsuit against the state of Georgia because the system is unverifiable. And it was already been ruled to be in violation of Georgia law.
What circuit was that?
That was in the U.S. District Court.
Right.
And we filed in state Superior Court. So we had a conference, and we're possibly going to get the first hearing before the end of the year.
And how does that ruling? So it was a judge. She ruled before the last election, but said there wasn't time to make the change. So she wasn't, she didn't make a penalty, consequence, whatever. There was no action. But did that court case give you leave to file in state court, or could you have filed in state court anyway? You're just using that for momentum. How is that district court ruling relevant to your suit going forward? Is it not, or is it just, compelling?
Absolutely. I think it's both relevant and compelling. Our argument is that the issue has been adjudicated. The judge looked at the most comprehensive set of evidence that's ever been introduced into an election contest in Georgia, at least to my knowledge. And the judge issued 250-page scathing rulings against the Secretary of State's office. The first one that she said in 2019 that Secretary of State was, quote, not credible, unquote. At least the office was not credible because the office kept delaying and giving her false information and all sorts of things. So then the second ruling, which 3 weeks before the election, as you said, found that the system is in violation of 2 Georgia statutes. So that means that in the November election was conducted on a voting system, $100 million voting system that was in violation of Georgia law.
For starters, it costs more than that over the life of it, right?
Absolutely. Yes. You know me well. So another $100 million in unfunded mandates on the counties, which they're currently having to pay for all the maintenance testing, licensing, logistics, all the stuff that they have to do just to keep this very expensive ballot marking device system up and running.
My guess is the way these things work, they will actually use that exorbitant, and I would say I know that you think this too, that it was adopted in violation of the checks and balances that are in place to prevent that kind of expenditure without proper analysis.
Fiscal note.
Yes, and they will use the very exorbitant cost of it to say, we will not scrap this because it was so expensive. How much you want to bet?
Oh, yeah. Well, they've already they've kind of used that similar argument
that's
before.
how it's insane.
Right.
It's just the nature of every government argument is, look, we created this huge problem. Obviously, now we have a huge problem. It's like,
Right.
okay.
And, yeah, it's a little bit hypocritical because the governor once said that, we couldn't afford to spend 20 or 30 million on a new system, but then he went out and spent 100+ million on a system that nobody wanted.
Was that on Kemp's watch?
The actual
Raffensperger signed off on it.
The purchase of the new system was Brad Raffensperger signed the contract.
Wasn't Kemp still Secretary of State when it was under consideration? Like,
Brian Kemp set up.
Not clean.
Brian Kemp set up. That's right. Now the Safe Voting System Commission, and just before he ran for governor.
So crazy. I'm never going to let it go that Stacey Abrams had him dead to rights on that funny business in Kennesaw, and she of the voting integrity crap would not bring that up against him, and she could have exposed the malfeasance in that, or certainly he stood credibly accused, to use language of the left, of malfeasance in the Kennesaw issue, and she didn't even bring it up.
Yeah, so you raised a really interesting point there, because her whole emphasis has been on voter suppression. Okay, so voter suppression, okay, you can suppress what I call the onesie twosies from voting, and yeah, that's a problem, and maybe it's against the law. But with the voting system, particularly in 2017, when the central server that programs all the counties was wide open to the internet for years, open to anybody in the world to hack it, and you can flip an election in a heartbeat, because that virus can go down from the central server to the counties, which then in turn program the voting machines, and nobody would ever know.
And that's real power.
Exactly. That's real power. You can control at the top. That's exactly. Yeah. And she doesn't want to even mention that. It's really, really interesting that she
probably wants that power.
Well, I think that's the problem we have with the Democrats and Republicans. They both want the power, and to be able to control it. And that's the whole issue.
Well, that's why I love what you're doing, because I hate bringing the sports analogies because I'm really, really bad at it. But it was Curt Schilling, and was it Roger Clemens, where he's just so like, you're not supposed to have to burn a bunch of pitches on a pitcher, who's that bad. Right. So Curt Schilling was just making it, popping foul balls and stuff like that just to burn the guy's pitches, which really infuriated Roger Clemens, who I don't like. And I just feel like, maybe it doesn't necessarily win the game in that moment, but it can burn the other guy out, or prolong the process, give time for other people to come in and make a difference. So I feel like even if they have to spend the time and effort and to kick your can or to craft their arguments, they have to address that stuff, and it makes them have to be more careful. Like, that's why I hate the way the mainstream media does the cover-ups and prevents, or like Facebook keeps us from having these conversations. Obviously, Facebook would not keep us from having these conversations if these conversations weren't a threat to the puppet masters that they represent, whom they represent. So I just feel like if they have to go through the process, it's much harder. It'll take longer. You got to keep them on their toes. So I appreciate that you're doing it, and it causes, people are aware of the problems with the Dominion voting machines, and it's not going to be as easy to get away with it next time, I think.
Yeah, I got an ad for you guys, or for whoever's putting together your ads. You can call me and I'll consult on it if you guys need it. But you have somebody playing Raffensperger, walking in front of the camera, touring the voting precinct, saying, "I oversaw history's most secure election in 2020 here in Georgia. We had top-notch security guards. Meanwhile, as he's walking by, security guards passed out asleep, paying attention to nothing. We had the world's most skilled ballot counters, and he's walking by. They're stuffing the ballots in.
And you
pockets.
see Stacey Abrams with her little
Stacey Abrams ducks down under her table, and you can still see her. The Dominion. They were the most secure devices, and it's on fire or whatever's wrong with it. A 30-second ad.
That would be great. I think you should do a little storyboard of that and submit it to Garland's people. So the last thing I want to ask you about before we go to questions is about your recent guest appearances. Weren't you on Lindell TV, or what else have you been up to?
Actually going to go on tonight at
my gosh. You're
very
those caffeinated beverages.
well, yeah, so it's at 6 o'clock there, and at least this is the tentative schedule, but at 6 o'clock they're going to go over the VoterGA evidence that they put in the U.S. Supreme Court complaint. And then at 8 o'clock I'm going on to be on the Lindell TV, which I think is going to be hosted by Marcus D. and Brian Cancon, who both first found out about me by watching your podcast.
No way!
Yes.
How fun is that?
Yes. Right.
Excellent. Well, happy seeds. These little connections, they can go a long way.
Absolutely.
Funny.
I think they all did. I mean, every podcast I've gotten, they found it from you first.
Wow, that's super cool. I did put your name around to ask other podcasters if they were interested. Who knows? Maybe it took. Well, that's fantastic.
Well, that was from a long time ago. I've been doing it with them for quite a few months. Because we've been doing this for almost a year, at least regularly. I mean,
we've been doing this for a year, but I think the first time you were on my show on WSB was like 10 years ago.
Right.
Almost.
10 years. So
it was certainly during a Ron Paul campaign, 2012, 2013 probably.
Was it 12?
Well, we met in 2012
was that
in Kennesaw.
Yeah.
I remember you had long hair.
On the square. Yeah. Well, I've lost it now.
Well, you could probably still grow it long, but I remember thinking this guy with the Latin name.
You had like long hair, like ponytail long?
A little bit. I think you had a little ponytail, no?
Not quite that long, no.
It was kind of long. It was kind of long. But I remember being impressed by your Latin name and your Georgia accent.
Well, I would look like Bozo the Clown now if I did that.
Well, you made quite an impression. And I still have the video of the speech I gave that day. I may have been the first speech I ever really gave. I'll see if I can find that.
Oh, that'd be good. Yeah.
What I should do with it. I should probably bury it, but
you were on the square, I think.
I was on the square. So anyway, I'll find that. In the meanwhile, let's do our routine, if you don't mind, where I'll pull up some comments and questions. Binkley can read them and you can respond. And then, gosh, you have a busy evening. So we'll try to keep this short and sweet. So why don't you guys chat for a minute and I'll start pulling stuff up.
All right.
So
are you excited about being on Lindell's thing? I saw that come up. That's a big deal.
I've done it a couple of times before, so I wouldn't say I'm not really that excited about it.
I'm excited about it.
Okay, but it's fun. I'm kind of looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it.
All right,
it'll be fun.
Tooney says we keep having these live streams and nothing ever gets done in Georgia. What's going on here? What about the drop boxes, the absentee ballots without chain of custody? Same interview, no results.
Well, we're looking into that as well. So our objective is to try to get as much evidence as we can out. And then once we get the evidence out, then, it's going to force people to do stuff. Now the chain of custody, the governor coming out and admitting that what we have is right is going to help us force the audit. So we're going to be hands down on working on the audit while we're waiting for the appeal. And we're looking at possibly some more legal action for some of the other things.
And I would say it's important to keep talking about it too, because you're doing the legal process, and the legal process is boring and it doesn't get a whole lot of attention. So if you don't talk about it, then it's not going to be top of mind, and it's going to be hard to keep the train rolling. And you need to have that momentum and you need to have that support to continue to push through the very necessary process you're going through.
Exactly.
Has Drupal says, when you quit Facebook, they want to know why. I told them it was to save you trouble. What I always say is it's
Save you
not
the
you, it's
trouble.
me. I'm the reason we're ending this relationship with Facebook.
But you would say, yeah, that's right.
KH says our county alone received over 350,000 from Zuck. Wow. Is that Lowndes County?
Yes, Lowndes County. Wow. That's a lot of bucks.
Mark Suck a Buck is part of the cabal. This is from Tyranny Solutions, by the way. This cabal has tentacles in every industry and sector of commerce and especially banking.
We're finding that out.
These are not images. These are not the images you're looking for.
That's true. We want ballot images. So.
I think that's funny.
Clint Little says, Tyranny Solutions, true. This may be the line in the sand. How can a constitutional republic stand with no constitution?
Yeah, they're violating the Constitution now consistently. It's like it doesn't even apply. So that's why we have to fight so hard.
I know. And it takes, I mean, I'm an anarchist for crying out loud, and I'm defending the Constitution like I'm the last man standing. It's just so crazy because back in the day when Obama was in office, people would call the WSB show night and day and tell me, you know, defend the Constitution, defend the Constitution. And we are defending an election where we know that there was a lack of integrity. Maybe Trump would still have won, but I will still say when Trump came along, people stopped defending the Constitution and just started defending the person, which is very, very dangerous. So that's why, even though none of us voted for Trump, I don't think we were all defending him in this, you know.
It's the principle you've got to stand for.
Yeah, you're the Constitution Party election advisor, or what is your title for the Constitution Party?
Yeah, elections director.
Director, yes.
Which is a volunteer position, by the way.
Yes.
We don't have any paid positions.
And you don't have election. It's not an elected position.
Right.
It must have been voted, or is it? How does it work like that?
How does what work?
How did you get to be elections director? Not that you're not the obvious choice, but
well, the chairman, Ricardo Davis, convinced me to do this. He kind of wrote me into it.
He was your co-founder, wasn't he?
Yeah, I kind of came. Well, we founded that later, but before that. That was back in the really early 2000s, and I sort of came kicking and screaming. I didn't really want to do it, but I just thought, okay, yeah, I'll do it. You know, he really wants me. Kind of, pushed it hard, and that was, I don't know, 18 years ago or something like that. So we've been doing it ever since.
Drew says, notice we now have a new COVID variant coming in 2022 midterm elections. Interesting.
So who knows how long they're going to take that to roll out. So Daniel wants an invite to the Discord. We have a Discord channel. I don't know if you do, Garland. I think they're talking about ours, which is simply the URL. Thank you, courtesy of Ismcant. The URL is dppdiscord.com. dppdiscord.com. I think it's down there.
Yeah, we have a Discord channel as well, but we're kind of reducing our activity on it because, some of the stuff we're looking at is getting pretty sensitive.
Because of the feds?
So it's not going to be on Discord. Not necessarily because of the feds, but it's just because of all the different, you have adversaries there.
What do you mean the feds, Binkley? What are you talking
I mean, I'm not just Discord, but anywhere. I know.
Are you talking about like trolls?
Yeah,
and
Discord and Telegram, trolls, online, covert agents, and I think that those platforms are where a lot of those undercover guys go in and try and stir people up.
I totally agree. Yeah, so don't trust anybody, but you can certainly have like conversations. I'll put it up.
Oh. Daniel says, we already got that one.
Sorry, I'm putting it up. I'm sorry, honey.
I got one. Tyranny Solutions says, can anyone say Bolshevik revolution is our enemy? This is very Bolshevik revolution-like in the tactics anyway, with the infiltrating at the local level and co-opting.
Yes. It's a whole new Marxist revolution. It seems like.
Yeah, it really is. It really is a Marxist revolution. Javon is on now chewing the professor out. We don't need this stuff now. It's all crazy. He's on where?
I really don't know. Let me see if I can find out. I honestly don't know where he is now.
It's actually called the new variant.
Yeah, I'm not sure where he meant that. I can't find it out. I tried to.
Yeah, interesting. This is where we can donate to you, right, Garland?
Yeah.
VoterGA.org/donate.
Right. So, and that's, we're going to probably, we have to appeal. That's going to take money. Then the lawsuit, I think the Dominion lawsuit might end up going into discovery, which means we're going to be able to do some investigation. That'll take money. And then we also maybe have to be looking at some new actions against the counties who violated the ORR, and also the ones who either some action against for the destruction of the data, the images. So that's a lot of stuff for a little organization to be carrying, but we have to do it. We don't really have a choice.
And look at the reach it gets you. Then you can have a position on, you go on OANN, One American News Network, you go on Lindell TV, like you get to spread the word that not only puts eyes on Georgia and puts pressure on the officials of Georgia to rise to the occasion and be able to stand up to scrutiny, but it also sends a message to the rest of the country that people aren't going to give up on election integrity. And these are some of the avenues that they can, that you're forging these paths.
Right.
Very interesting. All right. I think that is a good place to wrap it up. And let's circle back up maybe in a couple of weeks before the holidays interrupt our schedule, if that's okay with you.
Circle back that one. Yeah.
Yeah, just let me know. I appreciate you doing the show, and thanks a lot. And
always a pleasure. It's great to see you. Good luck tonight.
By the way,
what else is going on? Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Where can we see your thing tonight?
Yeah, LindellTV.com. At 6:00, they'll mention the VoterGA evidence. They've already mentioned it a little bit. I don't know if you probably don't know what things were or which, but we have quite a few, several statistics that are in the complaint. And then 8:00, of course, I'll be on with Marcus and Brian. But then I forgot to mention, December the 1st, we're having an event, an educational event in Roswell, and that's up on VoterGA.org. And I'll go through, here's the history of how we started, how we got here, and here's what we're going to do to get out of it. So we'll be talking about that, plus, of course, an update on all the litigation and everything. So invite anybody who's listening can come out on Wednesday, 7:00. It's all the information's up on the VoterGA.org events tab, and that's in Roswell. And I think Aviva is going to be playing a few songs, and I think she's going to debut a new Christmas song a parody that she's come up with, which is absolutely hilarious.
Oh, that's fun. I always love the new Christmas songs. I listen to the Christmas music for like a whole month straight. And even if it's a parody, anything from Aviva, I will love. That's fantastic. All right, guys. Awesome. Thank you for everything. And good luck with your show tonight. And have fun on December 1st. I hope you get a good crowd. And we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
Awesome. Anytime. Just let me know.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. See y'all later.